this lesson, we're going to learn how to create a return, a value return method. All right. So in the earlier example that we looked at a typical situation of a void. Okay. So quickly, what we're going to do is to see an instance where we create a method, and this time the method, when it is called, it can be able to return a value. You'll be using a very simple example of adding up two numbers. Okay, I hope it will be exciting and you can easily follow. Okay, so quickly let's get into it. So we're going to create a project. I want to call that return value. Finish, and then let's create a class my return method. Let me give a name that is much more meaningful. Okay, so let's just call, let's say, calculation. Let me click on finish. Okay, great. So like I said earlier on, our major focus in here for this particular episode is to learn to create a value return method that can either pass on one value or multiple values. Okay, and not to return multiple values. We do return multiple values in another lesson, not in this particular episode. All right, so for now we create the public static void, or we simply put, we create the main method. What we want to do is to, in this example, write it in the procedural form, and afterwards we would no, let's just go straight ahead. So I was going to have created a procedural form of the code, and then we translate it back into writing the main methods, but I will instead do that in another example. All right, so we're going to create another method, which is also a static method, but this time let's start by making it a void method. We call this add. It should have the open and the close parentheses. Okay, so we want to add up two numbers, so we want to create two variables. Int a is equal to, let's say, 3, and we create another integer variable b, and we say, let's say that is equal to 4. Okay, we want to add up these two numbers, so we say sum is equal to a plus what, plus b. All right, and then we do system.out.print new line sum without e, sum is plus sum. Okay, so let's terminate this line. All right, so what we have simply done in this block of code we have written, we created a method, we call that what, add. We're saying that when the method is called, it's supposed to take the value a and 3 be assigned to it, 4 and then assigned to b, and then we add up the numbers in a and then b, which is going to give us a result of what, 7. So sum will be containing the result 7, and then on the last line, 21, we want to print out the result stored in sum. Okay, but how would the method add be executed? If you follow very well the very immediate past lesson, saying that when the method call is mentioning the name of what, of the method. So when we type that here in the main method, we are saying that we would want to invoke or want to execute the content of the method called what, add, and add is this method, and this is its content. So it will execute exactly as it is written. Okay, so let's save this and then run it. We expect that it will say the sum is what? Is 7. So let's run this. The sum is 7. That is correct. Now our major attention is that we will create a method that is what? A return, a value return type of a method. We mean that it's not supposed to be a void, but for example, it should be an integer. Now, if that happens, it means that we would want to return a value from this method. Now, what was the exact functionality of this method? That we want you to calculate and then have the result of what? The addition of the two numbers, and then we kept that in the variable called what? Sum. So because we are saying the function should have an integer, has an integer data type, return type, it must have a return statement. Now the return statement is going to be return what? Return sum. Sum is the major calculation. Sorry, the addition is the major calculation we have done in here. So what we simply put in is that when it has added the two numbers stored in the variables a and then b, it should return what? Whatever the result of it was. And then when the method is called, the result is kept at the code that called that particular method. Okay, so the method add is called on line number 14. It means that because we have returned the result of sum, that value that is returned is kept on line what? On line 14. So when you print line 14, you are printing the result. Okay, but let's start from a very simple side. When we call the method, we want to pass on the result into a variable called what? Result. So we call the method, and then whatever the value kept in sum should be passed on to the variable what? Result. Okay, so I repeat myself. Add with the opening and close parenthesis, it calls the method what? Add. And then within this block, what you have done is to add up the two numbers a and then b. And then on the last line number 21, we are simply saying that it should return what? 7. Sum contains what? 7. 3 plus 4 is 7. So it should return 7. So it passes on 7 to this method call. Now what is going to happen here on line number 14 is that because it has returned this value, we are saying we want to pass on that value into the variable what? Result. So result must contain the value what? 7. All right, so let's try this. If you want to print the result, we hit enter, and then we're system.out.print. What do we print in here? Right, results. You can simply write some s. Okay, so let's run this code. Sum is what? 7. Is that correct? Yes, it is. In other words, you can see over here that in the method add, we are assigned input 3 and then 4 to the variables a and b. We may want that the method add would simply do addition and not receive inputs. Okay, so we take off those earlier declarations that we had done. Okay, and then we want to say when we are calling the method add, we want to pass on the 3 and then 4 here. Okay, which will mean that the method add here must have the same structure as it is here. 3 and then 4 are both what? Integers. So we instead create a parameter a, and another parameter we call it what? B. What would this mean? It will mean that the value 3 3 must be passed on to the parameter what a. The value 4 will be passed on to the parameter what b. Why is that? Because on line number 14 over here where I have selected, we are calling the method what add, and then we are saying that when we call the method add, we are passing on how many values? 2 values, 3 and then what? 4. Now when you pass on the value 3 and 4, which of the parameters would 3 get to? Which of the parameters would 4 get to? Just as they have been arranged, the first argument will go to the first parameter. The second argument will go to the second parameter. If there are more other arguments, then more other parameters need to be created. So if we have 6 arguments, then we must have 6 parameters. Okay. So in this case, on line number 14, we are calling the method. We are passing on 3 and then 4 to a and then b. So within this, we do this calculation. All right. So when that is done, on line number 20, it will return what? It will return the addition of 3 and then 4. Let me change 3 to 4 so then we are sure it is not repeating the output of the previous instructions that we wrote. I will save this. So 4 is passed to A, 4 is passed to B. So we expect that sum will contain the result what? 8. Okay. So on this line number 14, we're saying that the outcome from there is what? Is 8. It is passed on to the variable result. So result contains what? 8. So we expect that the output will be what? Sum is 8. Let's save this and then run it and then see what the output will be. Yes, sum is what? Sum is 8. I hope this is clearly understood. So a method when not void would have to return a value. What we have learned in this lesson is how to create a value return method that will return a number when it is called. All right. So in this situation, what we can do once again is that instead of calling the method and then passing on results to another variable before you print it out, we can do it all on one line. Instead, print the method call. Okay. So if you could see very well, we said that what result is equal to what? The method call, passing on the values 4 and then 4. Okay. In mathematics, if A is equal to B, then B is equal to what? A, right? So we can replace result by what? The method call. The method call is equal to what? Result. So we can replace result here by the method call. That the sum is, you should call the method and pass on the values that it want to add and then print the result. Okay, so let's save this and then see. Let me change this to 6. So we expect the output to be what? To be 10. Let's run the code. All right, so sum is what? Sum is 10. Okay, so anyway around, either like what we have on line number 14 or what we have on line number 15 will work perfectly well in the code block. Okay. All right, so once again, moving on, instead of passing the raw values like we have been doing in our code, we can ask the user to input those values. Okay, so to do that, we will need a scanner class. We want to do this at the console level, so we do import java.util.what scanner. All right, so now let's create an instance of the scanner class. Sc is equal to new scanner. It must be an uppercase scanner, and then we make reference to the system.in, which is the keyboard. Okay, so we would have to write a prompt statement to prompt the user to enter a value. System.out.print line. Let's say enter first number, and then we'll use the object of the scanner class, which is sc, to do the conversion to int, and then we store that in the variable called what? In a variable, we may want to give it any name at all. Let's call it, let's say n1. Okay, so by this we would have received the first the first input. So we are going to do the same for the second input. Let me just copy and then paste line number 16 and 17, and then we modify it. Okay, so over here, instead of enter first number, we say second number, because you have already done that at the top for the first number. And then instead of n1, we change this to what? N2. So then the variable names are different. So the first input is kept in the variable n1. The second input will be kept in the variable what? N2. Which will mean that in this case, when you are calling the method, you pass on what? N1, and then what? N2, instead of passing on 4 and 4. Sorry, 6 and 4. This must be N2. N1 and N2 are the variables that are going to keep the two inputs that will come from the user. Okay, so we pass on the names of these variables as the argument during the method call. Okay, all right, so let's save this and then run it. All right, so it said enter first number. So first number, I enter 12. The second number, I enter 2. The output gives us what? 14. 12 and then 2. Is that correct? Yes, it is. So basically, this is how you would want to use methods to do addition of two numbers. So the method add in this case is simply doing what? Just addition, and that makes it so much easy to work around with. Okay, so like I said earlier on, these are our parameters. A and B are parameters. In sum becomes an example of what you are calling what? Local variable. Why is it a local variable? It's a local variable because it is declared and defined within the method. So its visibility is actually within of this method. Outside of this method, it is not visible. Okay, so all local variables are visible only within the method that it resides. However, outside they are what? Not visible. Okay, so the variable n1 and then n2 are also what? Local variables. They are visible only in the main method and then not outside of what? The main method, or specifically not visible in the method add. That is not possible. Okay, so variables declared outside of all the methods are called what? Public variables. So all the methods can access them directly. Okay, thank you so much for watching this lesson. If you are new to this channel, subscribe. If you have any questions on this lesson also, you can leave them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.